Hello, everybody. Welcome to Curry and Mitchell from Watts to Brooklyn, and dare I say all points in between and beyond. I'm Sheldon Curry, here along with my good friend James Mitchell. We're going to discuss a number of topics in the sports world and politics and anything else that we feel we need to delve into. Thanks for joining us. What's up, good brother?
Everything's good. Everything's good. Another chilly day here in the Carolinas. Beautiful Carolina day, but it's cold, man. It's 47 degrees, so...
Well, you got us beat a little bit. It's cold here in Southern Cal, too. You know, polar bear weather. It's 55.
I heard that. Yeah, that's unimaginable. I don't think I've experienced that during my time out there. Yeah. That's pretty cold.
But the sun is out. We got a little rain the last couple of days, but the sun is out. The air is clear.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. See the mountains in the distance, right?
You see the mountains in the distance. Only a handful of times a year.
Beautiful sight. Beautiful sight, man. Yeah, man.
All right, man. So we just saw the end of Week 14, and we're going to do our weekly recap. There are any number of things. I'll just throw a few out, and we'll jump in. The Eagles continue to fly. We see a third-string quarterback in Frisco that got a lot of people talking about. Can they win with him? Unfortunately, we've seen the season-ending knee injury to Kyler Murray last night.
Oh man, that's horrific.
Yeah, you know, and any number of other topics. So I'm gonna give you the first stab at it.
Okay, I'm gonna start off with the Kyler Murray thing, since that's the most recent thing that's happened. That have a great impact on his career, and hopefully not, but that kind of injury, you never know how it's going to turn out. You know, the recovery is an individual kind of thing on the recovery side. But again, I watched the play in which he got hurt, and it looks like one of these turf injuries again. You know, I mean, all he was doing was running a non-contact injury that's happened to so many guys this season. A really prominent players like Sterling Shepard comes to mind, and a couple of defensive players that got hurt like that just running. You know, it's just. I guess his cleat got caught funny or something and twisted his knee. That's the only thing I can see happen. They replayed it several times. And it's just a terrible thing. And I suspect, I don't have any concrete evidence that it was the turf that caused it. Mm-hmm. I suspect that's what it was. It seemed, to be happening all the time anyway. I don't see why it would be any different in his case. And it just goes back again, if that is the case, that these owners just don't care about these guys, man. They haven't played on these carpets, rather than playing on dirt. And that probably wouldn't happen, But it's just a shame. I hope he recovers fully. And then somebody said earlier this morning, it's a good thing he already signed the contract, got $180 million guaranteed, just in case. But just hate to see that happen to anybody. I hope he comes back.
Yeah. One of the things, in addition to what you're saying, when I saw it when it first happened, in that split second, you know how your brain works. It looks like he was trying to do. He was in between moves. I don't know if that you saw the same thing. It was like for that split second, it was almost like, should I go right and maybe run out of bounds, or should I go left? And just in that split second, it just seemed like if you watched it in fast motion, that's what it felt like. I don't know in slow motion. And but I remember right when he got hurt, I said, "Oh man," because we've all been there with, not necessarily where we've torn our knee up, but where you kind of like are in between that split second.
Right.
And sometimes like, your knee will buckle or something, just not natural, and you're lucky you come out of it. And I think that along with, and I think of course what you're saying is more primary, but that was the first thing I thought. It was like he just didn't know which way to go. And I wonder if his tremendous athletic ability hurt him there, because it's like, because maybe other people who are not, that doesn't have that dexterity may not think they can do that kind of cut he was trying to make at the last second. It was almost like a cut on top of a cut. But yeah, it's too bad. I'm glad, all these guys, because most of their contracts are not guaranteed. And it's also a cautionary tale for Lamar, because, Kyler wasn't even hit.
Right.
So
people are talking about that this morning, whether or not, this is going to make the Ravens even more hesitant to sign him to a long-term deal, all that kind of foolishness. And Keyshawn kept pointing out, I said, man, that's ridiculous. You can get hurt on any kind of play. He
No, it's one of those narratives, man, that we keep talking about. That it's misapplied to black quarterbacks.
Right.
Tom Brady tore up his knee in the first game of the season in the pocket. He missed the whole season.
He talked about that.
You know, I mean, there's been other players that been hurt in the pocket and missed most of all of a season. So let's cut that crap out. I know. Injuries are part of football.
That's true.
It happens, man. And but they want to. These guys that got some athletic ability, they want to.
Oh, of course.
They don't want them to get paid, and what they really don't want is they don't want a plethora of those kind of players because of what that's going to mean.
Right, they see that coming. It's coming. I mean, it's on the horizon. It's almost here now. There's so many quarterbacks that fit that description, and most of the guys you see coming out of college these days are usually a lot of major programs anyway, are African American quarterbacks or non-European quarterbacks at any rate that can do more than just stand in a pocket and fort and be protected by the armed guards around them. So
I still say that we won't have a critical mass of black quarterbacks in the NFL until you get a representative number of white quarterbacks like Josh Allen that they feel like, it's kind of like, okay, well, if it ever gets to be majority black quarterbacks, at least we got enough guys. Because man, that's where all this pocket stuff comes from.
Of course it is.
We talked about this off the air about how they keep telling you how, Jalen Hurts is number one in the NFL from the pocket. He's proven he can throw from the pocket. Well, I want to hear what any number of other guys are doing from the pocket.
Exactly.
Give me a break. That's 32 quarterbacks. There's only about 8 or 9 black who start regularly on any given Sunday, so everybody else ain't black. So is everybody throwing well from the pocket? I mean, give me a break. I'd like to hear what, and I'll pick anybody. I don't care what the numbers are. Tell me what David Carr is doing from the pocket, or Derek Carr, I guess. Derek Carr. Tell me what he's doing from the pocket.
Exactly.
I'm so sick of that, I don't know what to do. What is Haneke doing from the pocket?
It's just the latest code word.
It's a code word. That's all it is. And then they get they get everybody enamored in. Oh, you got to stay in the pocket. You can't do, as soon as a black quarterback got some move, you got to stay in the pocket. Why do you have to stay in the pocket?
Right, they said about Josh Allen.
Of course they don't. They revere that. Oh, look how athletic he is. So he ain't doing anything different than these other guys. And I like guys who are mobile. I want to see Josh Allen's and all them out there. I can't stand those statue where everything's got to be perfect.
It gives you more versatility. In your attack. I mean, that's why they used to lambast guys like Vic and Randall Cunningham. Because they didn't stay in the pocket. Like that was the worst thing under the sun. That they could roll out and throw past 80 yards on target.
Well, you remember what happened to Randall? He tore up his knee in the pocket.
Right.
I mean, it's just this thing, man, is so. But back to Kyler, you're right. I'm glad he got paid. He doesn't need to rush back. He's a young guy. If he has to miss, because it's usually a year injury. And so now the one thing that I will say is overwhelmingly now with the technology and the medical advances. A torn ACL is not the end like it used to be.
Right, absolutely.
And so when folks come back, I think that what we've seen the key is obviously a good strong rehab and not bringing somebody back too soon.
Absolutely, that's key.
But guys who come back, in a year or so, they generally don't miss a beat.
I know, that's true.
They don't miss a beat anymore. It used to be a career-ending injury.
Absolutely.
What do you think about the Eagles, man?
Man, what can I say? The Eagles are flying. Are flying. They look, nobody's invincible, but they look as close as I've seen any team come in the last few years. They have all the tools, it seems, and then the good thing in there, to say about them is that in the next coming weeks, they're going to get stronger. They're going to be getting guys back. They've been playing without their starting tight end. They have Robert Quinn's going to come back. And so they're going to get strong on all sides of the ball. So looking forward, they look like they're in a good position, barring any unforeseen injuries coming up in the next couple of games or so. What's
interesting about Philly and the narrative and about how good they are or aren't is like all teams. They lost a game. You know, everybody loses, and then they squeaked by. They were unimpressive before the loss to the Texans, at least according to most people. Even though it was a road game, and Houston has shown that they can be very tenacious, even though they have a poor record. Then they struggled against the Colts, but then they came back and won the fourth quarter. So all the narrative, everybody's catching up with, bloop, 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 the blop, the blop. As opposed to that's just the NFL. This is professional football.
Exactly. Any given Sunday.
Any given Sunday. Now, what's happened since that Indianapolis game, which they won, by the way? Right. They've scored 40, 35, and 48.
That's something.
They've averaged 41 points a game the last 3 weeks.
Right.
So
incredible.
It shows you, man. It's they are rolling if they stay healthy, man. A lot of people like Frisco because of the defense and their system.
True.
But I think San Francisco, and I wanted to talk about that with Purdy. I realize that they're what they call a quarterback friendly team, where they got a lot of pieces around them, and as long as the QB doesn't mess it up. But the reason why I don't think San Francisco can get out of the NFC with Purdy, nothing against him personally. He looked good this couple of games we've seen him. But, man, I just can't imagine a guy who hadn't played all year until 2 weeks ago is going to be able to go on the road at some point in the playoffs, that inexperience, and pull it off. I just don't see it.
They keep playing that level, yeah.
I just don't see it. Yeah, I mean, you never know, but I just,
it's possible.
I'll believe it when I see it, but I can't project that. If he had played all season, maybe, but man, I just when it gets, because every game ain't gonna be up 28-0 on Tampa Bay.
Right, that's true too. That's true.
So it's but he go ahead.
And like you said, it was Tampa Bay, so and not to knock them, but they're having a rough year. The defense has been okay, but other than that, they haven't been much of a challenge. Yeah. Against really good teams, they haven't. If he'd done it against the Chiefs or Dallas or somebody, then you take your hat off to him even more so. But like you said, your hesitancy is well founded. We'll see what happens. And he could very well continue to play at that level, and if he does, good for him. But I understand your hesitancy.
Yeah. What I wasn't going to talk too much about Tampa Bay, but since we mentioned it in the context of their loss to the 49ers, one of the things that we're seeing is the Wolves are out now for Bowles and Leftwich.
Of course.
I don't know if you heard that report that somebody published a couple of days ago speaking to how I guess a day before the game in the last few weeks, Brady ignores or tears up the game plan and institutes his own.
No.
Oh yeah, they reported that in the last couple of days, and so I think it was yesterday. It was another report where, and this is the typical, and I'm going to say it, the white supremacist society that we live in. Instead of people, now reverse that for a minute, and I don't care about how many Super Bowls Tom Brady has won. He's still subordinate to the coaches. He's still supposed to work just like if that had been a black quarterback who had torn up the game plan or went against the game plan against his white coaches. You'd have talked about what a head case he was and how hard he is to get along and what is he doing. But it's like I've heard 2 or 3 overviews from people, and they're all talking about how Brady's getting tired of this, and it shows he has no respect for them. Like, wow. But here's what I want to go back to. You remember a few weeks ago we talked about this briefly about how Todd Bowles better run his show. You remember when he let Brady and maybe I'm not saying it was the worst thing in the world, but when he let Brady go for those 11 days during camp, that was a big thing. And then the thing that really got people was when he missed the walkthrough, which people say, oh, it's not a big deal, but a lot of people don't do it. And what it kind of made me wonder is that are you just trying to be cool with Brady, or you just figure, well, he's Brady, and now the Wolves out. So unless Brady comes out and starts, saying, hey, no, it's not Bowles, not Leftwich, it's us, it's the same old stuff, man. And then the last point I want to make with this is the kicker. Every time you see Tampa Bay play, everybody talks about, oh, they don't have Gronkowski. Oh, the offensive line, they don't have 2 or 3 guys. All that can be legit. Godwin is coming back off the knee injury last year. He's just getting into shape, and Julio's trying to stay healthy, and maybe Mike Evans has lost a step, and they got the worst running game in the league. Okay, so now think about everything I just said. And so that's all in Brady's favor. In other words, building in reasons why they only average 17, 18 points a game. But check this out. You don't hear not one of those things for the offensive coordinator or the coach of the same team. Think about that for a second. Now when it gets to Todd Bowles, they're acting like he has the 1985 Bears that he can't win with.
Exactly.
So I just had to say that, man.
No, you're right. It's not the same team that won the Super Bowl by a long shot. They don't have the same players. And another thing that people haven't paid any attention to, even on the defense, they don't have Ndamukong Suh or Jean-Pierre Paul. It were 2 outstanding players on their defense. And Jean-Pierre Paul with the Ravens now, and Suh just came out of, semi-retirement to come back with the Eagles.
That's right.
So, there's a lot of pieces that are missing.
And Shaq Barrett got hurt about 4 or 5 games. He might have been their best pass rusher.
That's right. And they have an old quarterback who's not as good as he was playing quarterback. And he's throwing balls. They say that about the lineman, everybody else, when he threw a ball behind the receiver in the end zone, stuff like that. He's not the guy he was. And plus, there's a fallacy to put all this credit on the success of the Patriots. I'm so tired of this Kellerman guy. How many games was it Belichick or Brady? Or he hasn't won a playoff game since Brady left and all that kind of crap. Brady just left 3 years ago. And they act like Brady won all those Super Bowls without the outstanding teams that the Patriots had during that run. They had a great team, great defense. See, they weren't big name guys necessarily, but they were really good ball players. And they played well and didn't beat themselves. You think about all the guys they had, the Bennetts and the Brewskis, and I can't even think of all the guys' names.
Richard Seymour, Hall of Famer, Law Hall of Famer.
The big linebacker, the guy played for them for a long time. I can't think of his name.
2 or 3 years he had Randy Moss, Hall of Famer.
Right.
Corey Dillon.
Right, and if you go back and look at those Super Bowls, I wish I had kept that article somehow. Several years ago, a guy did an article about Brady and all this credit he gets for all the Super Bowls that he supposedly won with the. He was the winning quarterback. He was the winning quarterback on the Patriots. But he gave the stats of what this guy did in each of those Super Bowls. There's one Super Bowl where he threw 1 touchdown pass and a running back threw a touchdown pass in the same Super Bowl. I'm serious. And there's the other game, where they're low-scoring games, the defense won a lot of those Super Bowls. People seem to forget that with that fiasco with Seattle, he had just thrown the interception that gave Seattle the ball and gave them a chance to win the damn game. And then the idiot coach didn't want Lynch to be the hero of the Super Bowl, so he threw a pass that was intercepted instead of giving it to Lynch to win that. So it's all kind of stuff like that, But that's why you hear this myth that this greatest player ever crap, which is absurd. It's really absurd. I mean, he's a good quarterback. He didn't make a lot of mistakes. He was competent, but he wasn't the best quarterback I've ever seen by a long shot. By a long shot. But that's the myth, the Superman myth. They have to keep that going. It's just sickening. It's sickening. So tired of that crap, Really.
It is tough. What do you think in your neck of the woods? What do you think about what Steve Wilks is doing with Carolina? They're 4-4 since he replaced Matt Rule, and it's even more impressive because they traded away their best player, McCaffrey, and they also traded away their best wide receiver at the time, or one of their best, Robbie Anderson.
Right. That's true. And he's doing a tremendous job. What else can you say? He's utilizing the talent that he has. And I heard recently, I just saw Kyrsten McCaffrey talking on an interview. I forgot, just a couple of days ago, and he was talking about Carolina, and he said that how he was used differently. He was used differently than the 49ers are using them now, which is something I always talked about. But
Yeah,
he
you
said
have.
that,
Yeah.
and he said that he said he wasn't the only good player, but that he was used that way. He was used all the time. Two-thirds of the offense was built around him. And what's happening in Carolina since he left? Other guys are getting a chance to play. And this guy was it Foreman? I think
Former Texas Longhorn, yeah.
Yeah, and some of these other guys, just showing that they have ability and they were getting the opportunity to play. So he's utilizing the ground game. They ran for like 200 yards in the last game.
Yeah, I think to your point, real quick, Hubbard and Foreman are the two that are carrying the load.
Yeah, Hubbard. I couldn't think it was last.
Yeah, Chuba Hubbard, I believe.
Yeah, Chuba Hubbard. Yeah, I tell you, this Alzheimer's kicks in every once in a while. Just forgive me, man.
Yeah.
But
no, you doing all right.
Yeah, but that's what it is, man. He's utilizing these guys, and they have a lot of talent. They always have a decent defense. The defense is playing well. They get turnovers, and he's just he's doing an excellent job, man. He's using the tools he has and running that ball. That's the key to their game. Run the ball, limit the passing, and they still have a couple good receivers, so he's doing an outstanding job. I hope he gets an opportunity to continue the way he's going. It seems like he should get one, but you never know.
Right.
Never know.
Well, it shapes up. Now I don't want to overblow it because Carolina is 5-8, Tampa Bay 6-7, Atlanta's 5-8. But I believe off the top of my head of the 8 divisions in the NFL, and we have 4 weeks to go, 4 games to go. All the byes are done now.
Right.
There's only 2 divisions where the lead is either even or one game. One of them is the NFC South, Tampa Bay up a game over Carolina and Atlanta. And the other one is the AFC North with Cincinnati and Baltimore, identical 9-4 records, with Baltimore presently having a tiebreaker because it beat Cincinnati head up, but they will play again. So I bring that up for a couple of points for Carolina and Wilks. One is, do you think he has a chance to get the permanent job given how well they're playing for him?
That's what I'm saying. I hope so. I would hope so that he's at least being considered. Because when he was appointed, the guy said that at the end of the season they were going to search for a coach. So it's like he didn't have him in mind long term. But given his performance and the performance of the team, how they rallied around him, and how he's utilized that talent that was there when Rule was there, that Rule didn't use it the proper way, you would think he would be at least a candidate. So I hope so. I haven't heard anything one way or the other recently. But I think there'll be a groundswell among the players and fans even that he gets an opportunity to do so because he's done an outstanding job. He really has. So I hope so.
Yeah. I think you're right. And the 2 quick points. One is I saw something the other day with Shaq Thompson, one of the better defenders, I believe, mentioned that he should be given a shot. Wilks should be, that everybody's playing hard for him, likes to play for him. And the other thing is, and again, it's not likely anytime, and that includes Tampa Bay in this, anytime you have a losing record this deep into the season. But unbelievably, Carolina, if they go 4-0, they win the division because they win all the tiebreakers, and then I know you want to make this point that they would already be in first place if.
I'm just gonna bring it up. That's right. That's my pet peeve, man. These guys. Personal conduct foul.
Man.
That hurts the entire team because you got to show off. They had another win. Yeah, they'd be in first place.
Yep.
Right. But, guys never learn. It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
You keep doing it. Yeah. But anyway,
yeah.
It is what it is, and I just wish them the best going forward. I like to see them sneak in somehow and get that. It's going to be tough to do it, but that'd be wonderful for that.
Yeah. What do you think about Baker Mayfield's debut with the Rams? He began Week 14 last Thursday with that comeback fourth quarter win.
Yeah, I think people make it more of it than it is. I mean, it's good for him. He made a couple of good plays and he scored a couple of touchdowns. But given the context of how it happened, and it's no big deal. I mean, it's not like he has no talent whatsoever. So I'm not making a big deal out of it. Let's see what he does in the next game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think one of the things that me and you are on the same plane is that, you're not the greatest thing since sliced bread when you do well. You're not the worst thing when you do. I mean, this culture we live in, man, where you play a good game, you're the MVP. You play a bad game, oh, you should be fired. Play a good game, oh, you're the MVP. It's like,
absolutely.
This thing is just maddening, man. So
I know.
yeah.
He's had success before in the league, so it's no big deal.
Yeah, he to me he is he's I know he was a first player pick, and that was just a mistake.
Of course.
And it probably has actually set him up for some of the criticism, because if he had been more of a 18th player in the first round or 22nd, it'd be a little different.
True.
He's just not. The number one pick. He's just not. And he's shown that.
That was a mistake to do that. That's all.
Yeah, he's more of a guy that, maybe if everything was perfect, he might be able to win a playoff game. He's probably better suited to be on one of these 9-8, 8-9 teams where not a lot's expected, and he can put up okay numbers and have a decent career. And then maybe he's best suited to be a backup.
Possibly.
At this point, given that he has 40, 50 game starts under his belt, it's better than some of the stuff they have. But yeah, I was like you. I just get amazed at it's one thing you can root for a person. So that was but goodness, they act like they went 98 yards in 2 seconds.
Right.
And forgot about those two big penalties and all that. So I just.
All of that goes by the wayside.
Yeah, so.
The situation was handed to him, and he took advantage of it.
Yeah.
So good for him, but like I said, we'll see what happens going forward.
Yeah. So what do you think, man? And now with 4 weeks to go, you see any definites as definite can be?
No, I don't know, man. I'm holding my cards close to my chest. I'm still waiting for this Dallas Eagles game. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Great anticipation. And the Jets and the Bills have to play again. So.
No. They're done. They're done.
Oh, they done? Oh, no. I know what it was. Somebody said
Miami. You thinking Miami?
No. I heard this morning somebody said that the Buffalo would hate to see the Jets again in the playoffs.
That was me.
Okay.
Yeah, we were talking about that off the air the other day. I was saying if some kind of way the Jets got in. And what's real interesting is if the Jets got in, well, of course, they have to beat the 2 seed first. So if Buffalo's the 1 seed, Buffalo wouldn't have to worry about it.
Right.
But if the Jets some kind of way got in and beat the 2 seed, the next team they play would be the 1 seed. Now, they not only have they split with Buffalo, but you said it yourself the other day. They were that close to winning the 2012 game.
Right.
I don't think Buffalo wants to see the Jets.
No, Jets have a good defense, and Jets are playing a lot of injuries, too.
Yeah.
They missed a lot of key guys, man. They probably won that game otherwise.
Yeah, and they're tenacious.
They are.
That's what I like. I like tenacious teams. That okay, we got injuries. We on the road. We playing with a third string quarterback. Actually, could start the year third string.
That's right.
And we still think we can go at you.
Right, and he got hurt in that game.
And he got hurt in that game. And then Flacco came in and fumbled the ball.
Right.
I should laugh, man, but
that's the kind of stuff.
Goodness gracious, Joe Flacco.
That game was he shouldn't even be in the league, but that's the way they do it.
Goodness gracious.
I know, it's absurd.
I think the reason why I'm hard on the Flaccos of the world is not that you can't make a mistake, but when you've been in the league, he's been in the league since 2008. Right. He's in his 15th season.
Right.
He's done and seen everything. Right. And you would think there are times where you'll see him throw a pick or just hold the ball carelessly in the pocket.
Right.
Like he's just got in the league, where you excuse it a little bit with a young player that's inexperienced. And that's what drives me crazy with Joe Flacco.
Flacco's days are way behind his best days. And at his best, he wasn't that great. He was an adequate quarterback. And, he has no business being in the league. But they go out and get these guys rather than give some younger guy an opportunity, at that spot. So that's on them, If that's the best they're going to come up with, they just give what they deserve when he comes in there. That's how I look at it,
Yeah, Flacco, he made his career on that magical postseason run when they won the Super Bowl, the 2012 season.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so been living off that ever since.
Yeah. And speaking real quick, speaking of second and third string quarterbacks, I don't know statistically, historically, but anecdotally, I can say this: I never remember the season, and remember, it's still 4 weeks ago, where so many teams have had, because of injuries, have had to play their second and even third string quarterbacks.
I heard a statistic today that 56 different quarterbacks have played
Okay.
this season.
Wow. And there's only 32 teams.
Right, 56 different quarterbacks started games.
Yeah, that makes sense, man, because
Yeah,
you think about the teams that have played the Ravens have played three quarterbacks.
right.
New England played three because Hoyer got right when he went in for Jones, he got hurt, and then they brought in Zappi. The Rams have played now 4 quarterbacks with Mayfield.
Wow.
Not only played 4, but when Mayfield starts this next game, they would have started 4 different quarterbacks.
The Jets have played 3.
The Jets have played 3. There's a handful of more that's kind of in that realm, and I've never remembered. Of course, Dallas played 2.
Right.
Chicago's played. Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is about to play 3, I understand, because there's some scuttlebutt. They might sit Trubisky down if Pickett can't go.
Is that right?
And go to your favorite man, Mason Rudolph.
Oh, my goodness. Like Jason, huh?
Like Jason. And and of course, when I think of Rudolph, it makes me think of our brother that passed, Dwayne Haskins, who might have been in that spot to play. So sad.
I was convinced he was going to be the starter, and that tragedy. That's terrible.
Yeah. And the way the season has played out, he probably would have.
No, I think he would have started the season as a starting quarterback. But we never know.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
But it's just been interesting, the number of injuries, man.
It has.
And like I said, so many teams have definitely played 2 quarterbacks. I mean, I don't think there's only been a handful of teams that have played at least 2 quarterbacks.
Cincinnati played 2. I know their quarterback didn't play the first 2 games, I believe, did he?
No, I think he played. He was coming off that appendectomy, though.
He was hurt, though. Okay.
Yeah, but Houston has played 2. They played 2 against Dallas last week.
Yeah.
And Indianapolis has started 2 different quarterbacks. Yeah, I mean, it's been the Giants have played 3 different quarterbacks. That's right, because Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, and then whoever, because there's another one that played for a little bit of time in one of the games. They played 3 quarterbacks. So, I mean, this thing is just incredible, man.
Yeah, a lot of injuries.
A lot of injuries. So, last ad on that, the injury thing. So, I haven't heard anything about Lamar. They play, and the NFL. Baltimore plays Cleveland Saturday, so that doesn't help them in the injury thing. So if Huntley can't go and Lamar can't go, Anthony Brown's gonna get his first NFL start.
Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. That's gonna be a lot of weight on his shoulders, man.
Yeah.
A lot of weight on the defense too. My goodness.
Yeah.
They have to play lights out.
And then I heard they brought up Brett Hundley now. He's if they have 3 quarterbacks, assuming Lamar doesn't go, he'll be the 3rd quarterback.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting, and not so much because the top 4 quarterbacks are African American, even though that is of note. But I think more what we've been saying for a long time, when you remember the narrative, and not that it's disappeared, but remember, if you go back some years ago, and some people say, "Oh, the reason why you don't want to have a mobile or it's a running quarterback is that even if he plays well, if he gets hurt, you don't have anyone behind him like that." And the only reason you don't have anyone behind him like that is that's what you've chosen to do.
Exactly.
And Baltimore is showing you
They choose to play a certain way.
They got Hundley as a 4th stringer who's probably not as mobile as the first 3, but he has some mobility.
Exactly.
And so they're kind of proving the point we've been talking about for 25 years, man.
Of course.
So I just thought I'd add that, but yeah. Anything else in the NFL you want to speak to? I know we got a couple of good games coming up. You got your man Gino in Seattle hosting the Niners this Thursday. That's a big game.
That's a huge game. I was really torn with the Panthers, because I wanted the Seahawks to win that game because of Gino, because I think they had the best chance going forward. But that was a tough game for them to lose, given the rest of their schedules, And to go in there without without their running backs, I don't see them beating the 49ers. It could happen, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, it's tough. Their inability to run, man. San Francisco can tee off, and Geno's going to have to come up with a magical performance. The upside for Seattle is they are at home. And it is a short week, and that doesn't necessarily mean the road team loses, but there seems to be a 2 or 3 point advantage in addition to being at home because of the short week.
That's true. That's true.
And so it should be interesting to see how that goes. And, Seattle is a half a game behind Washington and the Giants for the 6th and 7th playoff spot, and they are 2 games behind the Niners. And then for the Niners, they're trying to catch Minnesota. Because if they can catch Minnesota and get the 2 seed, the only team, and I'm going to assume Philly's going to be the 1 seed, the only team they would have to play on the road would be in the NFC Conference Final.
Okay.
So, if you're in the 3 seed, though, then the likelihood you'd have to beat the 2 seed on the road, then the 1 seed. Not that it can't be done, but it's a lot tougher. So these are big games for San Francisco, too, because I think they're looking at Minnesota. And so this should be a good game. But I'm like you. I'm hard-pressed to see them losing the game. But, again, you never know. The game gets tight. We don't know what Purdy might do. Nothing against him. He ain't been there before in the pros.
That's true. And, playing in a place like Seattle is not easy for anybody. But,
yeah.
And what the Seahawks have shown is that, even though they're running back, they're weak at running back right now, they can score points. Geno, if they get the ball, but the reason they lost that game to the Panthers really is that, they had a couple of turnovers early. Geno, with the uncharacteristic of being a couple of interceptions, and they gave him like 10 points on those 2 turnovers, and that's what really killed them. Yeah. And then the Panthers were able to control the ball. They had the ball for 39 minutes of that game. So, given another 4 or 5 minutes, Seahawks probably would have won the game. They could get the ball again. Because Geno's going to put some points on the board. He's proven that with Lockett and my man Metcalf. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but we'll see. Hope for the best. Keep our fingers crossed. And the team that's in the shaky position right now is Miami. You don't know what we're going to get out of them. And they have these road games, and they have to go play Buffalo on a Saturday night. Man, that's brutal. That is brutal. And they were talking about that out. They're down in sunny Miami right now. It's probably about 75 degrees. They have to get on a plane on Saturday and go to Buffalo. It'll probably be about damn near 10 below. Feel like it,
With the wind chill factor.
With the wind chill, the snowing and raining and something, they got to play football, man. That's a big disadvantage, It's the kind of stuff that Keyshawn been talking about all year, that he wanted to wait and see how Miami would handle those kind of games late in the season. They had to go on the road to play. And he was kind of leery about what might happen with that. And this looks like like a profit so far.
Yeah, you're right. The last 2 weeks they've not looked impressive. Losing at San Francisco and losing at the Chargers. And though those are, of course, San Francisco is considered one of the best in the league, and the Chargers have a winning record trying to get in the playoff. But you would have hoped Miami would have looked a little better in those 2 games, and now they could save their season in more ways than one if they find a way to upset Buffalo. Because they would move into a game within a game of them, and then they would have the tiebreaker if they ever catch them because they've already beaten them once. And then it would kind of reverse the narrative after these 2 weeks because everybody's dumping on Tua again.
Yeah, of course.
And
that's
so
true. That's true.
They just can't wait. But But I do agree based on the weather factor and the way they've looked the last couple of weeks. And Buffalo, the last game or 2, Josh Allen has kind of toned it down a little bit. Looked like he's trying to take care of the ball a little better.
Right.
And though he didn't have the explosive numbers against the Jets, but it was I'll call it a workmanlike game. And they did what you should be doing.
Good enough to win.
Good enough to win. Just
right.
So.
That's right.
So if they keep playing like that, they probably will be better served than having them put up these gargantuan numbers, but then turning the ball over twice.
That's true.
That's
true.
Interesting. All right, man. Well, let's move on to let's talk about a little bit of Major League Baseball, even if it's just briefly. Last week we talked about some of the big moves in free agency: Verlander, DeGrom, Trey Turner, and a little bit after we recorded last week, there was another big move. You want to speak to it?
And the Padres, huh?
Padres.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah.
That was a big one.
Yeah, Xander Bogaerts.
Xander Bogaerts from the Red Sox.
Yeah.
That gives them some lineup, man.
Yeah.
And, although I heard something today, something they're floating, the Yankees might be trying to get Tatis.
Yeah, well, I think Tatis might be on the market because they say the brass in San Diego not really happy with him. Because there was, and and you know me, I don't put a lot into when they deal with these black athletes.
Right.
Because everything, if you look right and look left, they want to say something's wrong with you.
Right, get blown out of proportion.
Yeah, they blow it out of proportion. But I think the two things that have some semblance of, okay, well, maybe I could see how they could think that. One was the obvious is the PED thing.
Right.
And it made him lose the rest of the season.
Right.
And then the, I guess we could flip a coin on this one. When they felt like he didn't either get surgery or didn't want to rehab a certain way. And the injury had to his shoulder, and it brought it into this year. So they almost seem to have this thing about him that he's extremely talented. So I would not be surprised, and the Bogaerts move would make even more sense if they're trying to move him,
Right.
Because like we were saying, man, that's a great lineup: Tatis, Bogaerts, Soto, Machado. Yeah, but if they're gonna move Tatis. Then that also opens up because what did we say? If they keep all of them, are they going to be able to sign Soto?
That's true.
Because you got to figure Soto with his age and his ability, he's going to definitely get over $300 million in whatever the number of years are.
True.
So I think your point about the Yankees and Tatis might be real.
Yeah, I just saw that today.
Yeah, it's not implausible.
No. So that might be the big one the Yankees pull off.
Yeah, and then that means that San Diego will then probably right away sign Soto.
Right. And try to keep Profar too, because he's a free agent.
Yeah. Profar is really playing. He was one of the top prospects in baseball years ago, and injuries were just killing him, man. He couldn't stay healthy, and now as he's gotten older and he's gotten a little healthier the last couple of years, he's showing his value.
Right.
He can play infield, outfield. He's a switch hitter, I believe, and
yes, he is.
He got power. He got a little speed, so he's really playing good ball. That's a good point you made. He's critical to a team like that.
Right. The same Yankees looking at him too. So
yeah.
you never know.
Well, they need to. They need to, man.
They need a lot of help. The Yankees need a lot of help.
Yeah, because I look at their team, man, and outside of Judge offensively, LeMahieu went backwards, even though I know he got hurt. Hicks got hurt, didn't play that well. I mean, when you look at them, Rizzo, he was all right, but 230. I mean, it's just a lot. Stanton got hurt. He didn't. I mean, it just and you start thinking to yourself, particularly given the ages of some of these players, you can't count on a group of them collectively anyway. I mean, you might get one that comes back strong, but the other two or three, just based on age and injury. You can't count on it, man. And so they do need to get a Tatis or a Profar if they're going to. I'm with you on that one because.
And they have to stop being a station to station.
There you
That's
go.
What they are.
There
That's
you
what
go.
they are. They hit the home run or they don't beat you. That's a rough way to play.
It is, man. And I know they don't steal bases like they used to, which is one of my laments. But you got to have some versatility in your offense.
I would think so.
You got to have an ability to steal a base, move a runner along, put some pressure on the defense, manufacture a run or two here and there, particularly in the postseason.
Absolutely.
Because it just waiting for the 3-run home run, man, is just. So.
But the Yankees have a lot of question marks. They really do.
Yeah.
The middle infield is unsettled. Don't know what they're going to do with Torres. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. They have a lot of prospects in the minors that they're going to be looking at pretty closely this spring, I think. And some young guys might be coming up. They loaded in the minor leagues, it looks like.
Well, that wasn't that many years ago. They looked like they was loaded in the major leagues, man, when they had Andujar and those guys, man.
That's true. They dragged Andujar. I'm so glad he got out of there. He he's with Pittsburgh now, so
Yeah.
hopefully he gets a shot to play. And so I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
And then what about that guy Floreal? Didn't you tell me he was one of their top prospects once upon a
Oh
time?
man, yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do with him. I hope he gets traded somewhere too, because he never gets a real shot. And they bring him up near the end of the year, and he plays a handful of games. They send him down, they bring him up, and send him down, bring him up, and but he hasn't. And when he's been up, he hasn't really hit well yet. But he shows flashes. He's fast. He's getting on base, walks and stuff like that, and steals. But I don't know. I'd like to see him get out of there too, get a chance to play someplace. Obviously, the Yankees aren't going to bring him up and use him. Doesn't look like.
Right.
It's like another Enderman situation. Yeah.
Yeah, they also need a big full year from Severino on the mound.
Yeah. Well, he says up, they'll get that.
He's a heck of a pitcher when he pitches.
Yeah, he is. He is.
And then what about Herman? You think he's going to come back? Because I know he won 19 games a couple of 3 years ago.
Yeah, he pitched pretty well last year too when he came back. So I think he will. I think he will. And you know what you're going to get out of this guy Montas that they got from the A's. If he gets back to his previous form.
Right. That's right.
And they got Cortez. It'll be pretty good pitching-wise, I think.
Who's going to be the closer? Because they don't have Chapman no more.
Yeah, have they officially cut ties with him? I guess they will.
I think they did.
They did? Yeah.
Well, no, you might be right officially. I'm thinking about when he was left off the roster.
Right.
But the way that ended, man, I can't imagine.
Yeah, he didn't show up for something and all that kind of stuff. So, he's probably gone.
So I guess it depends where he is on his contract.
Right.
I mean, they could eat it if he has another year or so, but if he had no more time on his contract, I think he's done with them.
Oh yeah, I think he's done anyway. I think you're right. Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting who they move to that slot because it's important for any team, but definitely for a team that wants to contend.
Yeah, they just got this guy from the Dodgers that was with them before. I think the left-hander was Kaylee or something like that.
Haney?
The pitcher.
Oh, Kaylee.
I think it is Kaylee. Yeah. They got him, man. They had this guy Clay Holmes last year. He was kind of like a semi-closer for them. They had several different candidates, so I guess they'll sort it out somehow.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And one last ad for Bogarts. It was 11 years, $280 million, and I think he's 30 years old.
Right.
But what I found, I looked it up the other day. That he's getting like whatever 280 divided by 11 is. It's like something like 25,400,000 a year every single year. That's interesting because usually they'll either start it off at a certain level and then it escalates, or vice versa. But they're going straight through. So you got to figure that's probably good for a club, because if they ever get to a point down the line where things don't seem quite kosher, it might be easier to move, or it'd be easier to cut. I mean, I'm thinking like 8 or 9 years into the contract because he's been in his late 30s. But I found that interesting, because a lot of times they're backloaded, But I think that's because a lot of times when they sign these contracts, they're already under existing contract. But he went to a new team, so this is a new contract. But so that may be why you see the backloading, because the first 3 or 4 years you're finishing off your existing contract, and then you get the escalator. So maybe I'm overblowing this. Yeah. So anything else you want to add in the baseball realm?
No.
Okay.
No, it'll be upon us before we know it, though.
Yeah.
The way time is flying, man. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
be interesting.
Yeah. Let me jump to the World Cup. When we came on the air, I had, we're in the semifinals: Argentina, Croatia, and France against Morocco. And when we came on the air, I took a glance, and I guess we know who's going to be in the finals. Argentina was up 3-0 in the second half.
Okay.
So France plays Morocco tomorrow.
Yeah.
And they're the defending World Cup champions. So it looks like a heavyweight matchup if France wins against Argentina, two of the more storied World Cup countries in the world in terms of number of championships. You got anything? What do you think?
Well, like I said, I don't watch a lot of soccer, but I'll be trying to watch tomorrow. And actually, I forgot about the game today. So what a great soccer fan I am. You know, so. And I had it in mind to try to, keep an eye out on it. I forgot it came on at 1 o'clock. I'll try to catch the game tomorrow and see what Morocco does. Maybe they can pull off a miracle and knock, France off. But, we'll see what happens. I have no real great feelings one way or the other.
Yeah, me either. The only thing that I can speak to, because it's interesting. I've watched less World Cup this year than I ever have. I've mostly just seen highlights and read accounts. In the past, because it was once every 4 years, I would catch a handful of games and always watch the semis and the finals. But hopefully, I'll watch the finals this year. But one of the things that I did take a peek at, because I know anecdotally, I know who the top teams typically are. It's like saying in baseball, historically, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Cardinals, even though they might not be that particular year, but historically. So when I see somebody like Brazil and France and Germany and Argentina, you're dealing with the heavyweights historically. So I went to look at the rankings, and the rankings when the World Cup started, France was 4th and Argentina is 3rd. So the World Cup governing body wants to see them in the finals.
Right.
Plus, you have Europe versus South America. That's always big for ratings.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Brazil against Germany or Argentina against Spain, or they love that, two-continent. So I know they're rooting for France tomorrow to beat Morocco.
Right.
So, and then the last 2 points I'm going to make, Messi, who some people argues is the greatest soccer player ever, and we've had that conversation. I think it's Pele for a whole bunch of reasons. These guys today get like all sports, because they play more games and all this other stuff. People want to get into statistics, but it's how they go. That's like comparing a guy that played 140 games in baseball, 70 games in basketball, 12 games in football with the present day. You're going to have greater aggregate stats, and that's what they do with the Messis and Ronaldos. Nothing against them. They're great. They've been great players, had great careers. And some of the awards that they win, I don't know them all. Some of them have French names, this name. A lot of those awards didn't exist when Pele played, for instance. So it's like there was no Cy Young when Bob Feller pitched. At least most of his, so you get what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
So, when you say, Clayton Kershaw had 3 Cy Youngs, but Bob Feller had none, it don't mean nothing. So I said all that to say I know Messi's trying to win his first World Cup, and that would close his storied career. And I did see that he scored today. So I know it's making everybody happy.
I'm sure.
And then, but the best player in the world may be the brother from France. I think it's pronounced Mbappe, Kylian Mbappe. Mbappe.
I heard that name.
Yeah, I believe he's the highest paid soccer player in the world right now.
Okay.
And he's won a number of awards. He was on the 2018 team that won the World Cup. Did a little reading about him last week. And so it might be Messi against Mbappe, old versus new.
Well,
in
nice.
the finals.
Nice.
It'll probably do great ratings. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on the World Cup, man. So we'll wait to see who Argentina plays. And when we come on the air, I guess the World Cup will be over, if I'm not mistaken, because the World Cup will be Saturday or Sunday, right? The final?
Yeah, I think so.
So we might get a chance to recap it.
And it's kind of interesting that Morocco is playing France.
It is. That's not lost on me.
No, historically.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
Be interested they knock them off,
Yeah. And they actually have they're not considered among the heavyweights, but I did see in the FIFA rankings they were 22nd, so it's not like they're chopped liver.
Absolutely.
So that it's
they've gotten this far.
Yeah. And I was really actually that's what made me look at the rankings, because I kind of figured Argentina and France were high up there, but I wanted to see where Croatia and Morocco was. And I think Croatia was 12th or 13th. And I remember France beat Croatia in 2018. I do remember that in the finals. So they have, at least in recent years, they have a pretty good program. But I didn't know about Morocco. And so at 22, they're coming. It's obviously, so. They
As
coming.
Dion would say.
Yeah. And apparently the couple of European powerhouses they beat, I know they beat Spain. Did they beat Portugal too? I can't remember now. But I know I think it was Spain's coach got fired after that. And maybe maybe the other one did too.
I think it was Portugal.
It was Portugal? Okay.
I think so.
I'm like, Morocco is so France better watch out, man. That coach better watch out. Morocco might go to kill coaches. So I tell you. All right, man. Well, let's move to briefly maybe college football. Good news and some bad news. Let's do the bad news first. We just heard that Mike Leach, the head coach of Mississippi State, died of a heart attack at the age of 61.
Yeah, that's terrible, tragic.
Yeah. And they were.
Go ahead. It's just hate to hear that anybody, relatively young man, and it just, I don't know what his health history is like, but those jobs, they'll talk about what a stressful job those guys have as being head coaches, and the time they put in, and all the different responsibilities they have. You just never know how things like that weigh on you.
Right.
And, it's just a sad situation. Condolences to his family and friends. It's a terrible thing to deal with, but what can you say?
Yeah, they are. I guess they were preparing for their bowl game. I think against Illinois on January 2nd, and Mississippi State. They were ranked most of the year in the top 25. So at 8-4, they probably somewhere still in the lower end of the top 25. And, Leach has had he's considered very eccentric, kind of contrarian. He's had some controversy here and there. I do know that, I remember he was at Texas Tech, and you may remember those teams that was scoring all them points and couldn't stop nobody about 15, 16 years ago. And won them. It was like crazy. And then he went to Washington State, and I think there was some controversy when he left Texas Tech. And then he's been in Mississippi State the last, 2-3 years. And so, he's one of those guys that, I ain't going to get into his personality, but I guess he's averaged about 7 to 8 wins a year. And I saw this morning when they were reporting on his death, he's been 19 or 21 seasons he's been in a bowl game.
Yeah, consistent.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, I'm not going to minimize that, but it's a lot different than it used to be because there's like 40-something bowls now. So
that's true. That's true too.
I mean, I saw where Rice is at 5-7 is in a bowl game because now they got once they take all the teams with winning records, then it used to be you couldn't have a losing record to go to a bowl game.
Right.
But anyway, I didn't say that to disparage him. I'm just saying he was a solid coach.
Right.
A solid coach. So
your point is well taken. These 9,000 bowl games these days, so somebody has to play in them, right? Yeah.
And I can tell you, as just an everyday fan, when if you go back to not even when I was a child, even as a young adult, you used to look forward to because there wasn't that many bowls.
Absolutely.
I remember when I was like maybe 19 or 20, there was like only 7 or 8 bowl games. And so you really look forward. You could even the Independence Bowl, you would watch it because you still, it was only 14 or 16 teams. Now, man, I don't even care.
I know. And they were all on regular television.
Right, they were all on regular TV, and
New Year's Day.
And New Year's Eve was special. It was special.
Yeah, you watch all the Cotton Bowl.
You start Cotton Bowl, Rose Bowl, Sugar and Orange. That's right. That's right.
Good old days.
But they just messed this thing up, man.
Yeah, well, TV and the money takes over.
TV and the money. And then I guess, fortunately for them, a new generation, they create a different kind of perception of this stuff. And I guess it works for them. But yeah,
Absolutely.
But you know what, man? People always say, like, oh, you get older, you're a dinosaur, you don't move with the times. It's not that you don't move with the times. What happens is you recognize that sometimes the product is not as good. Now, it's not my fault or your fault. The product. Now, if other people follow it, good for them. But it's just not the same, man. It's just not the same.
I know.
And I can't get excited. It's like
exactly.
When there was 7, 8, maybe 9 bowl games, and all the teams in them was 9-2. That's when they played 11 games. 10-1, 8-3 at the worst. You got quality teams and
exactly.
You know, and then because everybody wasn't on TV, because the NCAA still had that old archaic rule that they didn't get rid of until the 80s, where you couldn't be on national or regional TV more than 3 times in the season, and 5 times in the regular season, and 5 times in 2 years. So that made it even more important, because like you get to see a team like Tony Dorsett. When I remember when he was playing in some of the before he got to be a senior and won the Heisman, he was in a couple of bowl games, like I don't know, he might not have been the independent, but a bowl like that. And so you look forward to seeing him because you didn't get to see him hardly during the regular season.
Exactly.
You know, and so it was different. Now everything is on TV. Everything is, I don't know, man. I don't know how people keep up, but anyway. But on a positive note, man, and you called it, or we called it, Caleb Williams won the Heisman, as we thought he would.
Right. Good for him. He deserved it. He deserved it.
Yeah.
Outstanding year.
Yeah.
Outstanding year. Yeah. And also on the college scene, I heard that the defensive coordinator from Illinois become the new head coach of Purdue.
Oh yeah, I did hear that. Yeah. He's a young guy, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played at Colorado.
Okay.
I think he's a defensive back at Colorado or something.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a young brother, and I wish him well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's always good if you get an opportunity, man, because it's far and in between, man. I'm gonna tell you.
That's for sure. Yeah.
And so, you know, it's good to hear because it's such tough sledding, man.
It really is. It really is.
Such tough sledding. Yeah. Yeah. One thing I won't go back to Mike Leach specifically, but I don't know why my mind went here. But when I thought about him, and I know that even though the regular season's over, they still have a bowl game, and he's early into his tenure there, so it's basically like an in-season tragic death for a program. And the first 2 people I thought about in-season tragic deaths were Lyman Bostock and Thurman Munson.
Wow.
Back-to-back years in 78 and 79.
Wow.
And so it just made me, I know there have been other tragic deaths, and there have been people like out of season, the great Clemente, who lost his life trying to take earthquake relief to the victims in Nicaragua, and they never found his body. We've seen things like that. So I don't know if any of you remember, but those the first 2 came out of my mind: Lyman Bostock and Thurman Munson.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about them in years. Yeah. So it's terrible something like that happens.
Yeah, it is, man.
Like it cut down relatively young lives.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess one last thing in college sports, I don't know if it's a big to-do, Chris Beard, the Texas head basketball coach for the men, was arrested for domestic violence. We were talking about this off the air yesterday. I've read since that the reported victim was his fiance.
Oh, okay.
And they were reporting that Beard said he had he had a recording of the incident which would show him being innocent, but when the police asked for it, he refused to give it to them, whatever that means. So he's been suspended without pay, man.
Yeah, I heard he was suspended. Yeah, they played last night. They won the game last night. Yeah, the interim coach.
Yeah, suspended without pay, and I think before the 2020-2021 season, I read where he signed a 7-year, $35 million contract.
Wow.
So he's making a pretty penny, man. I think they're ranked 7th or 8th in the country this week. So that's a big story down there.
It is.
And so it's going to be interesting how this thing plays out, because I would assume that if what he was arrested and suspended for ends up being accurate, then he's probably done for the season, and then we have to see is he done, period.
Right.
Because that's a serious offense.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I just thought I'd mention that. I don't have any, about him personally, but it's big news on the college front.
Right.
Hey, man, back to the NBA. Unfortunately, we lost one of the great rebounders and defenders and tenacious people, and he had a real good, not only playing career, but he was a solid coach, given that he was coaching teams that didn't have a lot. You want to speak to Mr. Paul Silas, who we lost in the last few days?
Yeah, good Paul. Paul, he died on Sunday, and this Saturday, the 11th. Yes, Saturday, the 11th. And I was fortunate enough, as I told you before. I met Paul Silas. I didn't know him well, but after I met him when he was playing in Phoenix, when he came to Phoenix, and he played with Connie, and I met him through Connie, and got to know him a little bit, spend a little time around. And then when he went to Boston, when I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time, when they came through to play the Bullets in the playoff, they were still Washington Bullets back then. And my other dear friend, Jim Barnes, who was an ex-Celtic, we would go by the hotel before the game sometimes to see those guys. I saw Paul. That's the last time I saw him back in the 70s. I had a conversation with him. Just a regular, good guy, man, beautiful cat. And I just found out today that he was born in Arkansas, like Jim Barnes. I didn't know he was from Arkansas.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful, beautiful person, man. Like you said, but really outstanding career. 16 years. He had over 10,000 rebounds. Scored 10,000 points. He was on 3 championship teams.
Yes.
Two with the Celtics, 1 with Seattle. He was a coach. This coaching resume is ridiculous. I wrote down all the teams he coached, and it's amazing, man. He coached. He's this head coach for the Clippers from 80 to 83. He was assistant with the Nets from 88 to 89. He was assistant with the Knicks from 89 to 92. Assistant back with the Nets again from 92 to 93. He went to Phoenix. He was assistant coach from 95 to 97. He was with the Charlotte Hornets as an assistant from 97 to 99. And then as the head coach from 99 to 2002 with the Charlotte Hornets. And when the Hornets moved to New Orleans, he was the head coach from 2002 to 2003. And then he went to the Cavaliers as the head coach from 2003 to 2005. And then he was LeBron James' first coach in the pros.
Right.
And then he came back to the Charlotte Hornets, finishing his coaching career from 2010 to 2012. So a really, outstanding career for a really outstanding guy. It's just like so many of those guys are, just regular guys, man. Nice cat, great sense of humor, and just beautiful human beings, man. Friendly, warm, personable. So shout out to Paul and big memories of him. And condolences to his family and friends. He's a great guy.
Yeah, you gave a good overview. I had a couple of things that, in his 16-year career, he made a couple of All-Star teams, and he was one of those, in the Luke Jackson, Happy Hairston, if people remember those guys that just play good D, could get you 10, 12 points and double-digit rebounds. And matter of fact, on both the 74 and 76 Celtic teams, he was a double-double in those two categories.
Absolutely.
And he was a second-round pick with the Hawks, and they were in St. Louis. They moved to Atlanta. And everywhere he went, he was a big contributor, man. I mean, he played with 5 teams, but, we mostly remember, at least I do, with the Hawks, the Suns, and the Celtics. And at the end of his career, I do remember him playing behind Lonnie Shelton on the World Championship team with Supersonics during the next to last year's career.
Right.
And, he's made the College Basketball Hall of Fame finally, because at Creighton, he was a fantastic player.
Right.
I don't remember. I didn't look up his numbers, but I remember when I was young. I remember they used to talk about it. He averaged something like 25 rebounds a game in college. Just some crazy number, man.
Yeah, he led the college. He led the NCAA rebounds for 3 years.
Okay.
And I think 1 year he averaged 20.5 rebounds.
Okay, I knew it was something up there.
And over 20 points a game too.
Yeah, he was a hell of a player, man.
He was. He really was.
And the last thing, because you gave a good overview of his coaching, there's two observations I want to make to that. Mm-hmm. One was he largely always took over teams that weren't very good or were very young.
Right.
And when you look at those teams, the fact that he won 44% of his games as a coach, now that doesn't sound impressive, but it is when you consider the types of teams he had.
He's working with, absolutely.
I mean, you look at your first overview, he coached the Clippers in the early 80s.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
Oh, man.
Exactly.
People just don't know, man.
And then the Hornets.
The expansion team. Exactly.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. And he did a hell of a job. And I just think he never has gotten the credit. And my other observation is how long between that Clipper job and that Hornet job after he'd been assistant coach. Now think about it. He had been a player for 16 years. He had been a head coach for 3. Then he goes 16 years as an assistant coach,
Right.
largely, and before he gets another opportunity, man.
Right. That's the way it is.
Yeah, man. So
Yeah.
God rest his soul. I remember him very well, and I'm glad you were able to give the audience a personal view of what he, because that was the perception of Paul Silas, a soft-spoken, gentle, but he was a warrior on that court.
He was no nonsense.
Yeah.
No nonsense, man.
And his son is coaching the Rockets.
His son is coaching the Rockets. That's right.
So
That's right. And to give you a little peek at his value at the time, when he was traded from the Suns to Boston in '72, he was traded so that the Suns could get the rights to Charlie Scott.
Yep.
Who Charlie Scott had led the ABA that year, scoring 34.6 points a game. Because Boston had the rights to him, and Boston wanted Silas, so they got Silas and they gave him rights to Phoenix. That's how Charlie wound up with Phoenix Suns. And
well, I'm going to add to that. I'm glad you brought that up because Providence, because on the '76 championship team, guess who was in the starting backcourt with JoJo White on that Celtics team? Charlie Scott.
That's right. That's right.
So it all came together, man. They won that '76 title with, again, in '76 they beat Phoenix in the finals.
That's right. That's right.
Man. But yeah, and then I want to add, I think most people know who you're talking about, but for our younger listeners, when you kept referring to Connie, you're talking about the great Connie Hawkins.
Right.
Hall of Famer Connie Hawkins.
And it's really interesting. Paul had his best scoring year in '72 when he averaged over 17 points a game.
Wow.
And that was because he was playing with Connie.
Wow.
Connie was a great
passer. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, this is a little joke I had with Connie. The first couple of years that he and Paul played together, I just tell Connie, I said, Paul could anticipate some of your passes that you give it him. He'd score about 8-10 more points a game. We used to laugh about that. Paul was a great ball player, and a great guy, man. Yeah. I'm gonna miss him.
Yeah.
And I want to mention another name that nobody will probably remember. Another guy who passed this past week. He passed on the 10th of December. His name is Richard Dick Gaines. His nickname is Chink.
Okay.
He was an outstanding ball player at Seton Hall in the 50s. And people don't remember this. Back in the late 50s, early 60s, the NBA was small, didn't have a lot of teams.
Right.
And there wasn't a rush to sign black ball players. Very few teams had black ball players. Most teams had maybe one or two.
You being kind to say it wasn't a rush.
Right, I know. There was a band. So a lot of guys, and especially I grew up on the East Coast, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and around basketball from my teenage years on, and I was around a lot of great basketball players. So I got a chance to see Chink Gaines play. His nickname was Chink. And, he was 6'3", about 230. He was like a smaller version of Charles Barkley. And he played in the Eastern League, which was a big league back in the East Coast, mainly in Philadelphia, small towns in Pennsylvania, and in New Jersey. A lot of teams with the Eastern League. A lot of great ball players, especially black ball players. A lot of white ball players, too, played in that league that couldn't get into the NBA. And Chink Gaines was one of the best. And I saw him play a lot in the Rucker tournament up in Harlem. And the Rucker was really tremendous tournament. Wilk and all those guys played in it. And he passed. He played 11 years in the Eastern League. He was the league's 7th all-time scorer.
Wow.
He scored like 5,474 points in his career. So, and he's a guy, a guy who I'm familiar with. Like I said, most people never heard of him. But Richard Chink Gaines, a really great ball player, passed on the 10th of December.
Okay.
And I give a shout out to him.
And that's fantastic for a couple of reasons. One, we always want to pay homage to those who've made a contribution, be they well known or not. Right. I think it's very important to keep their names alive for the next generation. Now the other thing, kind of tongue in cheek, obviously today he couldn't get, well, not he, but it'd be very difficult for him to be called Chink today.
Absolutely, that would not be appropriate. That would not be appropriate. Yeah. I know, you're right.
Man. Man, today, bro, they'd be like, "Nah, you got to change that name." I mean, you maybe as an individual friend, but you couldn't take that into the public arena.
You're right.
Yeah.
A couple of guys were named that.
Oh no. I was getting ready to say that. There's a guy too in Negro leagues back in the day. You look back and their nickname was Chink.
Yeah, they got their name because they had
those Asian features. Yeah.
Ray Scott was another guy called the name. Ray Scott played baseball. He played in the Eastern League.
Yeah, I remember Ray Scott.
He played in the NBA with the Bullets.
He did. Detroit.
He coached the Pistons for a while.
I remember Ray Scott. Yeah.
Ray Scott, a hell of a ball player.
Yeah, he was.
He had that same nickname. So you're right. Politically correct these days, man. You can't do that anymore.
Well, and I know why you said it. I don't have an issue with that, but I don't even like to use it politically correct because the people that use that on the right, they try to use it to justify saying all kinds of crazy stuff. But
of course,
I just
that's a point well taken. You pointed it out.
No, I mean you didn't make it up. You just reported it. I'm just saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
Exactly. He was a tremendous ball player. He was on nose, man. He was something else. Great ball, could score, man. Rebound. He was feared, man. He was something. Yeah, a lot of guys like that. I had a privilege because of where I grew up, and saw that, man. Being near the Rucker and knowing about the Eastern League, got a lot of friends that played in the Eastern League.
Right.
Just tremendous guys, man. They couldn't get in the NBA. They were advanced like baseball was, like all sports were.
Yeah, I mean, it was horrible in the NBA. People look at the NBA today, or they go back to Wilton, Elgin, and Oscar. They act like, but even when they were coming in the league, it was still a code, man. And
there's only about 2-3 guys on the team.
And I think if I'm not mistaken, Elgin Baylor was the first player. Now I'm not saying he was the first able to, but he was the first black offensive player because they typically. There you go. That was my point. If you look at the Chuck Coopers and guys like that, they were mostly defensive players.
I have some stories for you, man. Guys that could shoot, they wouldn't let them shoot.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That was the whole issue. Sahugo Green. Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah.
Played with the Hawks at Duquesne University and Boys High in Brooklyn, of course. He was a tremendous player, but they wouldn't let him shoot the ball.
Yeah.
And Lenny Wilkins, who came to the Hawks, who also played at Boys High. And the only reason he was accepted because then he was a guard who would pass to
pass first point guard, and he's the Hall of Fame, a top 75 player.
And Lenny could score with anybody.
And even Lenny came after Elgin, though. I mean, not much after, but it was awful, man. Some of the accounts that I've read going back that because you're speaking to wouldn't let them shoot, but think of the number of guys they wouldn't even allow on the teams.
In the league, of course.
That's how criminal that stuff was.
That's right. That's why these guys wound up playing in places like the Eastern League or playing used to be industrial leagues that were around. And guys,
or the ABL, the forerunner to the ABA.
Yeah, but that came up. The ABA. And there's some other guys I want to talk about at another time. And one of my very dear friends talked about the ABL. They talked about this guy that plays at Portland last night. Hit 11.
Damian Lillard.
Lillard hit 11 threes in the game. And they said that he's second, only to Klay Thompson, who has 14. And I remember when the record was broken, I think Klay Thompson or Steph might have broken that before. I think Klay Thompson broke Steph's record at 13 or something like that. But anyway, this guy named Tony Jackson that you've heard me talk about. Yeah,
you mentioned that before,
I'll talk more in depth about him at some point. But when that record was set, the first time, whoever made 13, and they made a big deal out of it. It was a big deal. They said, it's the greatest thing ever happened. And I said, I saw that almost 50 years ago. Tony Jackson did that in 1962 with the ABL, with the Chicago Majors. He had 13 three-pointers. Nobody knows that. It's in the books. Look it up. So there are guys, who didn't get opportunity for whatever reason, who were just tremendous athletes because they were black, or in Tony's case, he was implicated in that bogus scandal back in the 60s, like along with Connie, he was wrongfully accused. And he was picked by the Knicks, as a matter of fact, coming out of St. John's University. And they never got a contract because that Irish, the head of the league, wouldn't let him sign him, because his name came up in the scandal, even though he really hadn't done anything. But they were trying to find ways to keep black guys out of the NBA, and that was another way to do it. people of color have been denied opportunities, and the world could be a much, much better place. And that's not been the case, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and I think to add to your point, what you see when you mention like a Tony Jackson or anybody, you can hear the naysayers saying, well, that's nice, but he didn't do it in the NBA or he didn't do it in the major leagues,
Right.
And when they do that, what they do is they forget all the what led, the fact of why most of these guys weren't in those leagues. But once the time passes, it's like giving Steve Nash, and he was a good player, 2 MVPs. So once the dust is settled, no matter what you think, for all time, it's going to show Steve Nash with 2 most valuable player trophies.
Which is ridiculous.
So then when the people now and 30 years from now, well, no matter what you think, 1, 2 MVPs, must have, the record says that, So it's but that's what happens. And again, I don't mean to disparage Steve Nash. He was a good ball player, but my point is he shouldn't have won 2 MVPs, and then you can now you can use that to feed your narrative. But you don't deal with how, and maybe that's a bad analogy, but with the other guys, when they don't get a chance to play, and then you want to later say, oh, well, that wasn't done in the NBA. It's like, okay.
Right, exactly.
So I think your point's well taken. I'm glad you brought some more sanity to the argument. Hey, man, the last thing that I have, man, we are an hour and 20 into it. Man, we can go. We just go.
So much to talk about.
I know we can. It's good. We can hold some water here. The only thing I got, and the only non-sports thing is, what you think about Kyrsten Sinema leaving the Democratic Party?
Good riddance on one hand. It's a shame that what it's going to do, to Biden and his agenda. Even though it's going to be watered down anyway because he lost the House. So she's just making a move because she knows that she's not going to be the Democratic nominee next time around, and so she's making a move so she can be viable going forward. And I just saw today where that other idiot from West Virginia. He didn't want to be left out of the news, so he's talking about how he's thought about leaving the party, but he decided not to yet. But it's still a possibility, and he's Mr. Trying to be a big shot.
Right. Because he wants that authority and that power.
Of course. So he's gonna play the same disruptive role. They're gonna play the same disruptive role they played before. That's all they're gonna do. Right. The two of them, to water down hold the Democrats hostage. That little half-ass Republican role, which is what they are.
That's right.
It's a damn shame that we're in this situation. But the people send these creeps to office, and that's what you get. So they said you get the government you deserve, and the way things are set up and gerrymandered, and have these 2 senators situation from these states that you're gonna get these right-wing nuts, the Wyomings and Utahs and places like that. So that's the system we're stuck with right now, and people don't wake up. And I'm speaking to average working white people. They don't wake up and understand the pawns that they're being in this game that keeps them oppressed along with everybody else. We're going to have the same system over and over again, same kind of battles.
Yeah, I agree. The couple observations I have is one, you hit it right on. She knows that she can't keep the Democratic nomination when she runs in 2024 to keep her seat.
Right.
So she's trying to get ahead of that, and I think she figures that if she can get in a 3-way, and I don't know what the runoff rules are in Arizona, but I think she's hoping to get in a 2-way runoff and then hopefully siphon off enough of each party because she's declared as an independent. So she obviously wants to maintain some semblance of her Democratic support, probably more on the conservative side, conservative Democrats. And then she wants to obviously hope she can siphon off some Republican votes. And she she says she's going to still caucus with the Democrats supposedly, whatever that means. But and then I was waiting for Manchin to come out with something, so we want to hold him hostage. And I think the biggest thing for the Democrats is why they need to go ahead and fill these judgeships. That's about, because the rest of it, I don't see much in the way of legislation of substantive. Yeah, because anything that comes that both houses approve, they're going to be so watered down that the common everyday man is likely not to benefit.
Exactly.
Because that's the way it usually works. And so, maybe if you can get some more objective, qualified jurists, it might help protect this country going forward instead of some of the nuts that have been put in there from the previous administration.
That's true.
And the number, I think he set a record for the number of unqualified judges that reached the federal bench. So it's just incredible, man. So, and then, I saw where Bernie Sanders called Sinema a corporate Democrat, and though he's right, there's a whole bunch of corporate Democrats. So I don't know that means a hell of a lot to me. That you.
No, that's the problem. They all got their hands out for the same.
They all got their hands out, man.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
So
Yeah.
but we'll see what happens. But I just wasn't surprised. One thing I will say that might bode well in quotations, as I say that, for the Democrats, is that she did wait until Warnock won.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying she wouldn't have done it anyway, but, so that tells me that there's some, but that might be part of her strategy too, is that she might be able to go forward and say, well, I didn't really hurt the Democrats, but I need to improve my lot. But I've always thought Manchin and Sinema were going to switch parties even before now. I've always felt that.
Yeah, they might as well.
And, and just give the committeeships to the Republicans, and then you'd be having lunch. Me and you would be in front of the House investigating something.
No.
Did you say something bad about so and so?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, we'd be subpoenaed. But see, nobody else had to meet the subpoenas and worry about me and you. They put us in jail for 45 years.
That's right.
Now this works. So.
It's really funny. It's just another aside. I watched a little of Jimmy Kimmel last night, and Michelle Obama was on this morning, her latest book.
Okay.
And Jimmy Kimmel was messing with her. He said, they're talking about Christmas and sending presents. Jimmy Kimmel said, well, did you wrap any presents in any classified documents? Anybody had laying around the house? So she said, what she said, her response was very pointed. She said, no, so we don't have any of those. She said, but of course, if we did, my husband would be in jail, somebody's jail right now.
That's right. You know it.
That's right. I was like, go ahead, Michelle. Tell it like it is.
And I'll add one to her. If he had thought about doing it, he'd be in jail.
Exactly.
What, you thought about doing it? You in jail.
This line running around hadn't been indicted,
I know, man. This thing is
disgusting.
it's disgusting. But I think if there's a silver lining in all this, anybody that wants to believe in something decent and objective realize that change has got to be made, man. Because this thing is just, you can't with a straight face look at any of this stuff and have any faith in this stuff, man.
No. It's off the rails. The rails. Really crazy.
All right. Go ahead.
One more thing. I don't want to get off the air without saying that today is the 100th anniversary of the birth of Larry Doby.
Wow. Okay. Thanks for that one, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been 100.
Oh, one minute. Maybe the 99. I think it's born in 23.
Yeah, because it's funny. I got so many of those dates in my head,
Right.
But that's fine. That's okay.
Yeah, but it's his birthday.
It's coming up. It's coming up.
Yeah, today's his birthday. We've been 99 today. Yeah.
Coming up. The great Doby.
Big Larry Doby, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Wonderful ball player. My brother was talking about him today. We were talking, and my brother was fortunate to go on to the 1949 All-Star game. It's the only All-Star game that's played in Davis Field. And he was talking about how he saw all those great ball players, Ted Williams, Musial, DiMaggio, Hank Greenberg, and of course that was Jackie's first.
That was the first for any black players.
Yeah,
in the majors. Yeah.
Jackie, Don Newcomb,
Campy.
Larry Doby, and Campanella were all in that game. Yeah, and he saw all those guys, man. Yeah. He was talking about that today.
Ain't that something, man?
Yeah.
You talking about royalty.
I'm telling you.
Talking about royalty, man. It's
He said Evansville never looked smaller than it did that day when those guys were in batting practice. It was everything they hit. The right-handers hit the things in the upper deck. So everybody else, Dobie, those guys were hitting everything to Bedford Avenue over the right field wall, man. They said it was amazing to see those guys play.
That's royalty, man. Yeah,
absolutely.
That is royalty. So,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, thanks for adding that, man, because you know me and Dobie and company. I love, just to see those guys and what they meant. Because not only to baseball, but to society in general. Man, the things that they put up with and fought for and the regalness and the integrity that they did it with is the thing that
themselves. Absolutely.
That's the thing that just, you look back, man, to the strength it took to be that regal and to keep your integrity.
Right.
And then to perform as they did.
Perform at that level, all that pressure and all that, it's unimaginable.
It's unimaginable. That's why I say if Jackie, just using one stat, if Jackie could hit 311 out of his prime, if he was in his prime with no races, he probably would hit 411.
Exactly.
Lifetime.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just.
Exactly.
I think we can never forget, and we can never let these people, I don't care whether it's spitting to the line to NASA, to water down not only the accomplishments, but, understand what would have been without all that junk.
That's right.
With all out that junk, what would it have been? No matter how great these folk were, how much greater they would have been.
Absolutely.
So,
They could just go out there and play ball.
Or go on and be an engineer, or just be whatever it is, without all that extra mess.
Exactly.
That they, and then you still, and you look at the Daniel Hale Williamses and the Charles Drews and all these great people, man, and just think as great as they were, George Washington Carver, what would they have been without all that?
With support, that's right.
Without always having to take the arrows out your head and your back, your neck, so. Yeah, man. Well, hey, man, thanks for adding that. It's been another good, solid show. I think we've covered a number of topics, and I'm going to say this. I know it's going to sound a little self-serving, but I think every week we educate a segment, even if we only got a couple of viewers. We're going to increase that in the coming months, but I think people continue to learn some things, and I know I've gotten some good feedback from a handful of people on my side of the world that, they say they learn something every time they listen. So, and that is the purpose, as well as hearing a different way of handling some of the same stuff that we hear, the insanity every day. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, until next time, you again continue to take care of your part of the world.
I'll do my best.
I know you will. I know you guys are in good shape on the Eastern Seaboard, if you will. And we're going to try to maintain out on the West Coast.
Keep the scarves handy, man.
I know, man. I know. Like I say, it dipped below 60. It's polar bear weather, man. We so conditioned, man. I know everybody else looking at us with crossing their eyes like, man, that ain't cold.
I know.
But, we get conditioned, man. Polar bear coats and heaters are on as soon as it dipped below 60.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. All right, man. Take care of yourself, and until next time, man, we take care, and we'll do this again.
Okay, do the same.
All right.